In this video, I will show you how to do organizational change management for HRIS rollout. Did you know that 45% of human resources information systems implementations fail to achieve their objectives? Do you know why? It is because organizations do not prioritize change management. My name is Obi Iradium, and in this video, I will show you a similar change management methodology that I used at organizations like Apple, Microsoft, Yale University, and other organizations to drive real adoption, reduce resistance, and increase change successes for a wide range of technology implementation, including HRIS. Here are the three outcomes for you today. And so please take notes. You can also pause this video from time to time to take screenshots. Outcome number one is to equip you with the latest change management methodology for HRIS implementation. The second outcome is to provide and empower you with actionable insights and best practices that increase my own successes in delivering change management. Outcome number three is to prepare you with how-to knowledge for delivering change management. Are you ready? All right, let's hit the ground running. Here is the portfolio of best change management deliverables that you will want to deliver for rolling out HRIS within an organization. I will go into details shortly, but at a high level, it involves conducting change assessments, delivering communications, conducting and implementing change strategies and plans, engaging with leaders, coaching and training impacted users, and tracking change successes. To increase your success, you will want to apply this four-phase change management approach based on best change practices for rolling out HRIS and other HRO systems. You want to start by assessing readiness for the HRIS rollout. And then after doing your assessment, you next want to move into the design phase. This is where you build the change strategy, as well as the detailed plans and assets, as well as materials for delivering change management for the HRIS implementation. And then you go on to the third phase, which is where we implement the change deliverables and track adoption. Finally, we have the fourth phase, where we sustain and reinforce the change by embedding new behaviors into day-to-day operations. Each phase is time-bound and scalable, meaning we can apply this model for a small pilot, or we can expand it enterprise-wide with the same structured cadence. Let us quickly go over the change deliverables for phase one. There are 6 change readiness assessments that we normally need to do to really understand how ready the organization is for the HRIS implementation. Think of these 6 assessments as your early diagnostic. So imagine taking your car to a mechanic shop. The mechanic normally does assessments to identify what the issues are before they start fixing anything with your car. This is similar to what you will be doing for your change readiness. The findings from your 6 readiness assessments will tell you exactly where to focus your entire change management efforts for the HRIS implementation. Let us double click into each one of these 6 assessments that you should be doing for your HRIS change management deliverables. The first one is to conduct a current state and cultural assessment for the HRIS rollout. The purpose of this assessment is to understand the impacted organization's culture, the leadership alignment, change maturity, and cultural readiness. Everything that I just said is basically this. How open are the impacted groups to change? Are they groups that are generally receptive to change? Or are they known to be resistant to change? That is really what you are doing here. So how do you do it? You can use surveys to evaluate openness to change, to determine leadership trust and communication effectiveness. At the end of this video, I will show you how to get a free downloadable readiness survey for you to use. You also want to do focus groups and interviews with selected individuals within the impacted department to understand their culture and receptiveness to change. You want to answer, is your culture ready to accept, embrace, and adopt a data-driven, transformational HRIS implementation? The second assessment to do is the change impact assessment. The purpose of this assessment is to understand what is changing, who is impacted, and the level of impact by function or role for the HRIS implementation and rollout. So how do you do this change impact assessment? You want to conduct sessions with project teams, SMEs, and other stakeholders to document process changes, new workflows, and impact. As you are reviewing process flows and also interviewing stakeholders to understand the current state versus the future state, you want to document the level of impact and the severity of impact. This is important as you will need this information to prioritize change management support for the areas that will be impacted the most for this HRIS rollout. So as you can see on my screen, you want to document who is impacted, estimated number of people impacted, and also this one is very important, input for change management plans. So for every level of change or impact, what does change management need to do? What things should be considered for training, for communications, for engagement? You want to leverage that. You can also leverage this free change impact assessment template that I am sharing on my screen. All free resources that we are going to be going over with you today, you can access all of them. The link will be below this video. So once again, when conducting your change impact assessment, you want to meet with project teams, functional leads, business analysts, IT, stakeholders, and all other groups. The next assessment, actually, before we get to the next assessment, let us pause here for a second and just take a look at what I am showing you on my screen. This is a summarized view of the detailed change impact assessment. When I do change management to increase adoption for HRIS and other systems, I normally provide this summarized view to leadership and senior stakeholders, and they really appreciate it. It provides them with a one-slider overview of the different personas that are being impacted and the level of impact. On my screen, I have listed personas, but you don't have to list personas. You can list departments. You can say, for example, number 1, sales department. They are experiencing between high to very high level of change impact. The next number two could be marketing or IT or manufacturing, right? So you can use departments or you can use personas to reflect this consolidated level of change impact. The next one that we'll want to go over is our assessment to identify resistance. It is very important for you to identify resistance that may derail the HRIS implementation. So to gather your resistance information, you can use the free resistance management template that I am sharing on my screen. You want to capture first name or group name. You want to capture resistance level, ability to impact or derail the HRIS project. You also want to include the resistance management tasks that should be done to mitigate the identified resistance. So if you take a look on my screen, you will see that column where I've included resistance management tasks. The column is to the right of the status column. You can use this column to gather what needs to be done to address the identified resistance for each person or for each department. Now, it goes without saying, keep this document very confidential and only show these templates to people on a needs to know basis. Now, here are some common reasons why people resist HRO implementation: lack of leadership sponsorship, fear of job loss, training gaps and insufficient communication, change fatigue from other transformations, resistance from power users of the current legacy tools. The next task that you want to do is map your stakeholders and also your champions. Stakeholder mapping ensures everyone impacted by the HRIS rollout is identified and engaged appropriately. Now, on my screen is a list of the groups that are normally impacted by HRIS implementations. I am only listing 10 groups, but there are more. Human resources is one of the groups that is impacted. IT is another group, as well as data teams. Business unit or business function managers and supervisors. Employees across the organization is another group. It is important to group individuals within the organization into groups. Even though human resources, IT, finance, and other groups will have employees, it is important to have one group, the employees group. You also have finance teams that are impacted. Leaders are also impacted. The PMO and change management are impacted. Operations is another group that is impacted. External vendors or service providers are also going to be impacted. Compliance and governance groups are also going to be impacted. So make sure you are entering all of these groups into your stakeholders and champions template. You also want to conduct enablement needs assessments. What do I mean by enablement needs assessment? Well, different departments and groups might have different preferences for how they want to receive training, for how they want to be communicated with, for how they want to be engaged. And so you want to make sure you interview stakeholders within the different departments to gather their preferences. This is very, very important for you to keep in mind. Why? Well, stay tuned, because in about 7 to 10 minutes from now, you will find out exactly how critical this step is for you to do. For now, here's what you need to know. The objective of conducting an enablement needs assessment is to identify training, communication, and engagement preferences as well as needs by role and impacted department for the HRIS rollout. You want to develop audience personas around these groups. When we get to the design phase, which is phase two, you will want to ensure that you develop personalized training, engagement, and communications based on departmental preferences. So you can go ahead and take a screenshot of this, okay? And as I mentioned earlier, you can always rewind this video to rewatch specific parts. You can also come back to this video again and again and again to ensure that you really understand everything that we are discussing, because it is very important to help increase your success. You also want to deliver readiness surveys and also do interviews. The purpose is to measure baseline awareness, desire, knowledge, and confidence about the HRIS. Your survey should help you gather awareness to the change, receptiveness to the change, knowledge of the change, and many more. You want to summarize the results into a readiness report for leadership review. At the end of this video, so make sure you stay until the end, okay? At the end of this video, I will show you how to download a standardized survey that you can start using today. I have used that survey across many consulting engagements that I have been part of, and it is a very successful survey for you to use. So, findings from the 6 key assessments that we just discussed will become the foundation for your change strategy and engagement plans, which you would develop in phase 2. And phase 2 is what we are going to discuss next. Before we dive into phase 2, though, if you need help delivering change management for any project, including HRIS implementation, do reach out to me. You can see the link below. Phase 2 is the design and develop phase for your HRIS implementation. In this phase, you will want to focus on designing your change strategies and developing the key deliverables and change materials that will guide your rollout. There are 8 strategies on my screen which cover all angles, from communication, training, and leadership engagement to resistance management and post-go-live sustainment. For you, you want to ensure that your change management playbook that includes all of these 8 strategies are well defined. The goal is to tailor its strategy to your organization's unique culture and impact profile, rather than using a one-size-fits-all approach. Together, these 8 strategies will help you create a cohesive roadmap for successful HRIS adoption. And I will go into a little bit more detail about this, so don't worry. I know a lot of things might be overwhelming right now, but that's okay, because we will guide you by the hand and also provide you with a step-by-step guide on how to do everything. For your strategies, you will want to use that strategic playbook, and I will be providing one to you for free. Once again, when you click on the free resource link below this video, you will pretty much see everything. And here's what it looks like. So this free strategic playbook is in PowerPoint, and here is the cover slide. And it also includes a slide that allows you to tell the story about the change management journey for the HRIS implementation. And then here is the slide that contains an overview of your respective strategies. As an example, under communication strategy, one of the strategies we recommend is for the change team to apply a multi-pronged approach, which involves a top-down and a bottom-up. For the top-down, leaders are sending communications down to impacted users. From the bottom up, the change team, the change sponsor, and also champions are sending up communication. So you can leverage that as your communication strategy. For your engagement strategy, you also want to apply a multi-pronged approach that involves doing roadshows, town halls, briefings, and other types of activities. Impacted audience, you also want to include a slide or two that includes the different departments or job roles that will be impacted. You also want to include next steps. And we have included almost everything for you. You just have to adjust this document to match your specific organization and your specific project. Communication, here is where we go into detail about the hybrid approach that will be used. You also want to include channels for which communications will be delivered, right? And then it's a similar thing with the approach. How frequently will you be sending out communications? Engagement is also another one where we have included predefined strategies for you to leverage, including two-way communications to build trust. We also included different channels that you can use as part of your strategy. It's a similar thing when you continue to review this document for training, for managing resistance, for sponsor engagement. All of these strategies are included here for you to use. So make sure you review the link to the free resources and download the strategic playbook for your HRIS. After defining your strategies using that strategic playbook, your next step is to translate them into actionable change management plans. Each of these plans that you see on my screen, from communication and training to resistance management and adoption tracking, operationalizes a specific part of your overall strategy. Together, they ensure that all parts of your strategy is not just planned, but executed in a structured, measurable way for your HRIS change management implementation. The goal is consistency, accountability, and sustained adoption across the organization. And you want to go ahead and pause the video and take a screenshot of this to help you build your own 8 change plans around the focus outlined here on the second column. So there are 2 columns here. The first column is the type of change management plan. The second column is what is the focus. So for example, your change impact and readiness plan, the focus of that plan is how will the impact be addressed. Your communication and engagement plan, the focus is how and when you should communicate, as well as to whom you should be communicating with. The next thing for you to keep in mind is you will want to develop and socialize a holistic change roadmap. And you can leverage the one that I am sharing on my screen. It helps you sequence communication, training, and reinforcement activities to align with the HRIS project timeline. Your leaders, your stakeholders, and executives will also appreciate a view like this one in one slide that shows them at a high level how change management will be landing the respective deliverables and the timeline for when those deliverables will be landed for the HRIS implementation. On my screen, I am outlining the main communication assets you will want to develop to drive awareness and engagement for your HRIS rollout. You will want to draft and use invites for kickoff sessions, for onboarding and training reminders. You will want to use emails for updates, for countdowns, and also go live announcements. So countdown communications are communications you send to count down to go live. So for example, 4 weeks before go live, you can send out, hey everyone, in 4 weeks' time, we will be rolling out the new HRIS platform, and here's what you need to know. And then in 2 weeks' time, you will send out, hey everyone, in 2 weeks, we are going live with our new HRIS implementation. And then 1 week later, a similar thing. And then the weekend before the HRIS is implemented, another communication goes out. That is referred to as countdown communications. You also want to leverage drafting and sending out newsletters to maintain momentum and keep people engaged. Tips and tricks is another key component that has been successful for me as a change management consultant. Tips and tricks content really involves things like short videos or quick use guides, or hey everyone, here is one tip you should know about using the new HRIS system, or hey everyone, here are 3 advanced tips that you need to know. Another example of a tips and tricks is what is called did you know. So you can send a message on Teams or Zoom or Slack, depending on the collaboration or collaborative tool that your organization is using. You can send out a quick message to impacted users or to champions that says, did you know you can use the new HRIS system for XYZ? Okay. The key is this: consistency. You want to communicate early, often, and in multiple and using multiple channels so that the messages land across all audiences. There is a general saying that people need to hear the same thing 7 different times for them to start to get that message. You also want to create the materials you will use to onboard, engage, and equip the champions that will support your HRIS implementation. So you want to create materials like the onboarding kickoff deck that you're going to be using for the kickoff call to launch the champion network. You also want to create a change champion toolkit that includes key pieces of information, and we will go over this information as part of today's session. You also want to create a champion engagement hub or channel in Teams, Zoom, Slack, or any other collaborative channel that your organization uses. You need this to keep your HRIS implementation champions engaged and also supported. In addition, you want to create leadership engagement and support materials to help your leaders really understand from their own perspective how the HRIS system will impact their day-to-day job and how they can champion the rollout of the HRIS system. So you want to develop resources like engagement guides, playbooks, and what we call a day in the life of a leader. That way, the leaders can really see for themselves what this means to them. If you look at the bottom right of my screen, you will see there is a roadmap that is titled Leader Action Roadmap. This is also very important. You use a leader action roadmap to clarify to leaders what is expected before, during, and after go live of the new HRIS system. You also want to develop persona-based or role-based learning materials, including longer videos, shorter videos, how-to guides, templates, FAQs, and job aids. And this will allow you to ensure that you are providing comprehensive educational resources. You also want to develop a centralized hub This has been very critical to my own success as a change management consultant, and I help my clients create centralized hubs. You can use SharePoint, Teams, or any internal websites for your organization. Use this hub to house your change materials for the HRIS implementation, your training resources, your videos, your PowerPoints, any Excel document, any Word document, basically content that users will need to really understand what is changing, to really get the knowledge. Having everything in one place ensures consistency and easy access for all users who will be impacted by the HRIS system implementation. Now, before we move on to phase threes and discuss the deliverables that you will need to put together and deliver as part of phase three, here is a quick recap of phase two. In this phase, we develop comprehensive change management plans that will translate strategy into action for the HRIS implementation. We covered the communication, training, stakeholder engagement, resistance management, adoption tracking, and many more plans that you need to put together. These plans and assets will ensure that we are using a consistent approach for delivering change management, which really increases the success of the HR rollout that your organization is implementing. Before we go on, if you are finding value in this video, do give this video a like. So that lets me know you found it useful. You can also subscribe to be kept updated on useful content. All right, so now we move on to phase three, which is the implement and manage adoption phase for the HRIS rollout. This phase focuses on executing communication, engagement, and enablement strategies and plans to drive adoption of the new HRIS system that will be implemented. During this phase, you will deliver targeted communications through email, town halls, newsletters, videos, as well as the enablement website that we just discussed a few minutes ago. You want to ensure you keep messages about the HRIS implementation. Keep these messages transparent and consistent. The goal is to make sure every audience impacted by the HRIS system, every audience gets the right information at the right time through the right channels to build excitement, readiness, and sustain adoption of the HRIS. Use this template on my screen, which is free, for your communication plan. As you can see on my screen, this template includes who should receive communication for the HRIS rollout. What is the type of communication they should receive? Is it awareness? Is it a countdown? Is it an update? How often should this communication be sent out? Who should be sending out the communication? And as you can see on my screen, there are also other columns that you want to capture in your HRIS communication plan. You also want to activate your change champions that will be supporting the HRIS implementation. Host a kickoff call to align on messages, cadence, and feedback mechanism. During the kickoff call, provide your HRIS implementation champions with information on their roles and responsibilities. What does it mean to be a champion for the HRIS rollout? You want to make sure they fully understand that. You also want to tell them how you plan to support them. Very, very important. Nobody likes to fail. And so champions want to be told how you will support them. You also, during that kickoff call, provide them with some level of training as well as communication materials. Make sure to keep them engaged throughout the rollout of the HRIS. To do that, you want to check in with the champions on a regular basis, weekly or every other week. You want to conduct office hours so the champions can join the call and ask questions or seek help. You also want to use that collaborative channel like Teams, Slack, or Zoom channel to keep your champions engaged. You also want to deliver what I call a white glove leadership onboarding and coaching session. Why do you have to do this? Well, you do it to help leaders understand the benefits of the HRIS to the organization and to help them model adoption. You want to use personalized training and role based demonstrations. So, here is how you can do it. I normally send out an outreach email to the leader, letting them know that we are looking to schedule a white glove session with them to support them in their role as a leader as part of this HRIS implementation. We will let them know it's going to be a 45 minutes session, and that we will engage with their EA, their executive assistants, to schedule the session. And then during the session, we go over the day in the life use cases. I will explain that in about 2 to 3 minutes. But before I do, let us discuss something very quickly. So earlier, I talked about how leaders play a critical role in driving change adoption. During any HRIS implementation, your mid level and senior level leaders become the bridge between the project and the change team and everyone that is impacted by this change. Managers and leaders act as communicators. They share the vision and they explain the why. They are advocates. They show visible support through their actions. They are liaisons. They help translate strategy into what it means for people for their day to day activities. They also serve as coaches. They guide their teams through the learning curve, and they also act as resistance managers. They help us identify and address concerns early before they spread. When leaders actively step into these roles, adoption accelerates and resistance decreases for a HRIS implementation, which is why it has been very helpful to my success when I'm able to coach leaders. So I encourage you, take the time, coach impacted managers and leaders, help them connect the dots on why the HRIS will help them personally. When you meet with these leaders, you want to use this uh, day in the life flow to make it real to them. You want to walk them through how the new HRIS tool will support their daily routines, starting from what they do around 8 o'clock and how the HRIS will help. And then around 9:30, and then 11 o'clock, and then 1 o'clock, 3 p.m., and 5 p.m. So you basically want to walk the leader, take them by the hand, and just walk them through this flow to make it really meaningful to them. This allows leaders to see immediate value. It positions them to confidently champion adoption across their organization. But here is what you absolutely should not do. You should not present this slide to your leader and show them everything. Here is how you want to present this slide. You want to use a build slide, exactly what I'm sharing on my screen. You want to spend 30 to 60 seconds telling the leader what to expect. So, for example, Rob, who is the individual you can see on the top right of my screen, Rob leads the sales department. When I'm meeting with Rob, I tell Rob I am going to use a day in the life approach to show him how the HRIS tool, uh, show him how uh, it really impacts his day to day role, but most importantly, how the tool will help increase his productivity and his successes. And then I say, Rob, based on my understanding, around 8 o'clock, here are some of the things, here are some of the things that you do. And then here is how the HRIS system will help you. Rob might have questions, and then I will address those questions. And then I move on to, by the way, around 9:30, I understand here are some things that you do. And here is how the HRO tool can help you. And then after discussing the 9:30 activities, and I'll say around 11 o'clock, I understand, Rob, that you normally prepare for weekly leadership meetings. And here is how the HRIS tool can actually help you prepare for those meetings. And then 1 o'clock, I say, hey, Rob, I understand that around 1 o'clock, you normally meet with the marketing and customer success departments to align on lead generation. Here is how the HRIS will help you. And then I go to 3 p.m. and then I go to 5 p.m. You see how I used a build slide approach to present this day in the life to Rob. You want to make sure you are using this approach. That way you don't lose your audience. You also want to deliver hands-on training and also deploy educational resources to help equip all impacted users with the knowledge, skills, and confidence they need to use the new HRIS tool effectively. You want to conduct interactive sessions, role-based, persona-based workshops. You also want to do office hours to increase user confidence. Uh, you remember earlier when I talked about the centralized website? During training, as part of your communications, you want to make sure you are mentioning to people that the site does exist and it contains educational materials and also resources for the HRIS implementation. You also want to manage resistance proactively and reactively. You can use this resistance management free template that I am showing on my screen to help increase your HRIS adoption. And then you also want to track adoption metrics like user usage, training completion rates, as well as feedback that you are gathering. For the usage, the system IT or system admin can give you access to reports, and that report will allow you to track departments that you just provided training to. Are they using the system right after you provided them with training? When you send out a communication, you can go into the reports to see if after you sent out that communication and people are reading your communication, are they going into the HRIS tool? Are they logging in to go use that tool? So it is important that you have access to the reporting dashboard and you can track usage. Before we move on to phase 4, let us do a quick recap of phase 3. During this phase, the focus is about execution and engagement for raising adoption for the HRIS tool. During this phase, we rolled out our communication plan to drive awareness and also readiness. We launched and managed the Change Champion Network to keep momentum strong for the HRIS implementation and also adoption. We also delivered hands-on training and enablement sessions to build impacted user confidence and capability for using the new HRIS system. We provided white glove leadership support, helping leaders model adoption and reinforce using the new HRIS system. At the same time, we managed resistance, we tracked and addressed concerns, and finally, we measured adoption and success metrics for the HRIS. After we have deployed change management, we now want to ensure that we sustain adoption of the new HRIS and embed new habits into daily operations, which leads us to phase 4, which is the sustain and reinforce phase for your HRIS implementation. You want to start by maintaining your change champion network and feedback loops. Keep champions and leaders engaged through monthly or quarterly meetings, surveys, and success storytelling about the new HRIS platform. You also want to continue office hours and user support to provide ongoing help and to refresh HRIS training as needed. You also want to continue to track adoption during the sustain phase, track usage of the HRIS, track engagement and sentiment trends to ensure adoption of the HRIS doesn't fall off over time. You also want to capture and integrate lessons learned so that future rollouts benefit from this experience. You also want to reinforce and recognize adoption by celebrating success stories, highlighting top users, and showing the impact the change is having. Something that I do to increase change management successes for HRIS and other types of implementations is I ask leaders to send communication down to their organization, and on those communications, uh, the leaders will be recognizing some people that have gone far and above in adopting the changes. What this does is it helps people to feel appreciated, and it makes everybody else that hasn't been recognized want to do more to adopt the HRIS changes. So, just one tip and trick for you to keep in mind to help increase your recognition, activity, successes. You also want to ensure that you are embedding the change into business as usual operations. So you want to update departmental policies and procedures and workflows and performance measures so that the new way of using the HRIS system becomes the standard, not the exception. Next, let us go over the 4-phase methodology. So here is really a summary of everything that we've discussed so far today to deliver organizational change management for any HRIS implementation. So you basically want to be able to see everything in one slide. We started by conducting that 8 change readiness assessments for the HRIS rollout to identify how ready the organization was to adopt the platform. We then moved into design, where I showed you how to build the change strategy, the detailed plans, and the assets for delivering change management for the HRIS platform implementation. And then we discussed phase 3, which is where we implement the change deliverables, and we also track adoption to support the HRIS rollout. And then finally, we sustain and reinforce the change by embedding new behaviors into day-to-day operations. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, each phase is time-bound and scalable, meaning we can apply this model to a small pilot or a big pilot or a mid-sized pilot. We can also expand it enterprise-wide with the same structured 4-phase cadence. Now, leadership often want to know, how long will this whole thing take? So I've included a slide for you so you can present this to your leadership to let them know how long things take. On average, it takes 3 to 12 months to deliver end to end. Here is something else that I emphasize to leadership. If you watching this video right now, take a look at the bottom of this slide in that yellow bar, that yellow section, you notice how it says output from scope, readiness assessment, and availability will determine timeline. What does that mean? Well, the scope and the scale of the project, the readiness availability, and other change readiness assessment findings that comes out of your readiness assessment, availability of needed resources and champions. All of this will determine how long the change management piece takes. It could be 3 months, or it can be all the way up to 12 months or more. Here is something else to emphasize to your leadership when you're presenting them with this slide. This other one that I'm about to go to next is absolutely important. This slide here. You want to let your leaders know the 3 to 12 months change management timeline that you just showed to them does not account for the project or the program or the IT activities. It does not account for the IT team planning, designing, developing the configurations to integrate the HRIS to your organization's upstream and downstream systems. It doesn't include IT or the program team testing the system. That 3 to 12 months is really just change management. You don't want to make the mistake of not mentioning this, because then leaders might think the entire thing, the entire project, change management, project, program, IT, everything is going to be 3 to 12 months. But wait, before you go, come back, come back. Let us go over two quick questions that a lot of people ask all the time. It is important for you to make a note of these questions as well as the responses, because your leaders or your team or your stakeholders will be asking you these two questions. So here's how you respond. Question number one: what is organizational change management for HRIS implementation? When you get this question, the answer is very simple. You want to let people know organizational change management for HRIS implementation is a structured, people first approach that prepares, equips, and supports stakeholders to adopt a new HRIS platform or HRO information system, translating HRIS integration goals into clear communications, tailored training, resistance management, and measurable adoption outcomes aligned to business value. Did you catch all of that? You can rewind this video. You can rewind this video. Here's the second question. People might ask you, how do you really build a user adoption strategy for your HRIS rollout? And here's the response. We start with change readiness and impact assessments. We map stakeholders and champions. We segment audiences by persona. We then sequence our communication and training roadmap. We anchor our strategy to KPIs such as active HRIS usage, task completion, and sentiment to drive sustained HRIS adoption across the enterprise. Those two questions, once again, you will get again and again. So just make sure you keep on rewinding this video and making a note of all of this. In addition, I'm going to include the link to the detailed guide that actually includes everything that I just said. And if you need a top change management consultant to help you or to partner with you, feel free to reach out to me. See the link below. You can also find the link to the readiness assessment survey that I mentioned earlier for you to use. And you will also find the link to the detailed step-by-step guide that captures literally everything that I just discussed in this video. And don't forget to like this video, as that lets me know that you have received value from it. You can also subscribe to the channel so you don't miss great content like this one.